Gun violence is a terrible, terrible problem that affects the United States. I'm going to talk about understanding the U.S.'s gun problem, solutions we can implement, and provide motivation to use those solutions. Gun culture has become a toxic issue that we have to come to terms with. I am not advocating for taking away all guns in America. I'm simply asking that we develop a healthy conversation around guns instead of a screaming match. Sweden is a country that has a healthy gun culture and gun legislation that makes sense. I'm not saying we have to become Sweden. There are many other countries with even stricter gun laws. I'm just saying that we should try to develop effective solutions that maintain a minimum level of safety, as opposed to living in fear. I understand that people are bored by this topic and feel that there is nothing we can do about it, but I feel that it is exactly the opposite of the truth. By giving ourselves knowledge of the problem, we can hope to craft effective solutions for the future. I also understand that people will be angry with no matter what I say, no matter the context. Some people will feel like participating in an honest dialogue. For those people, I ask you, why not participate? Maybe our knowledge will grow together. Who knows? First, I want to establish that the U.S. has a gun problem. Compared to 6 other G7 countries, the U.S. has 57 more school shootings than the other 6 countries combined, the highest in the world. The U.S. has the highest suicide rate by gun. 24,090 Americans killed themselves with a gun last year. The United States spends $280 billion on gun violence every year. There are 693 mass shootings and 372 incidents of police officers being killed or injured last year in the U.S. I would keep listing statistics, but we would never be able to talk about solutions. Now, I want to set a scene. You are in your home, and through some means of getting news, you hear there was a school shooting today. Immediately, you have this feeling of deep sadness and disgust. Why would someone do that? How could this happen? Why isn't anyone doing anything about this problem? I think these initial feelings are normal. I think everyone gets upset when they hear bad news. I think the most effective way of coping with this problem is to acknowledge it and face it. If we let gun violence be this nameless, shapeless entity of despair, we will never be able to combat it. I want to share some information about gun violence, talk about the solutions, and provide motivation to build a safer society. Now that we've established that we have a problem, the first step is to understand it. I think research and investigation is a crucial first step into coping with these problems. In the example of the school shooting, who, what, when, where, and why are important. Let's use the recent Oxford High School shooting as an example. On November 30th, 2021, a 15-year-old boy entered a bathroom with a backpack and came out with a semi-automatic handgun, firing at students while moving down the hallway. The 4 students who were killed were 16-year-old Tate Meyer, 14-year-old Hannah St. Juliana, 17-year-old Madison Baldwin, and 17-year-old Justin Schilling. Deputies rushed to the school around lunchtime Tuesday and captured the shooter within minutes of the shooting. What makes this shooting unique to other school shootings is that the parents allegedly tried to hide after the shooting, the reported reason being that they had prior knowledge of the violence that was about to occur. Now, this seems very basic and tedious. A first grader could do it. However, I think it is very important that we examine this process and see how we can make improvements to it. Having heard about a school shooting, many people will have a gut instinct and simply explain, oh, we need to do X, Y, Z. It's this person's fault, etc. I think many issues, especially complex issues like gun violence and school shootings, have a nuanced solution that is non-instinctive for us. I will continue on this later, but taking a philosophical, scientific, creative, logical, and rational approach is the key to making these situations manageable. I know looking for information like this can be painful. It's monotonous. It's painfully boring. It can also reveal the parts of our societies that terrify us. And frankly, you may say these situations are not your responsibility. But for those who are curious and who want to make the world a better place, we need to audit our thought processes and see what we can improve. Now, what can we do to combat gun violence? There are 2 pieces of the puzzle, the legislative aspect and the social aspect. Some may say, we need to reform mental health before we even can talk about guns. But that's ridiculous. Reforming the United States healthcare system is a good idea. We need to implement some solutions that are at the problem's core. The legislative aspect involves being informed on upcoming gun legislation and being vocal with your representatives. Acceptable gun legislation would be background checks on all firearms. The FBI failed to complete 316,000 background checks in 2020, a number that has been increasing. Disallowing the mentally ill or those at high risk of gun violence from getting a gun, passing gun trafficking laws that would be able to punish illegal gun dealers, and gun buyback programs. These are just the few solutions, and you can find more here at this website. Frankly, any gun legislation that makes it harder to get a gun is a good idea. We have an oversaturation of firearms here in the U.S. There are 393 million firearms in this country, 1 for every person, and then some. Ideas of arming teachers or using guns to combat gun violence is frankly a bad idea. Countries with a lower availability of firearms have less gun violence. We are the country with the most guns in the world. If guns are supposed to keep us safe, how come we have the highest levels of gun violence? I'm open to debate on the topic, but from my research, increasing the total number of guns is not an idea I can get behind. Now, that we have some ideas to combat gun violence, we need to be vocal with our politicians. You need to contact your president, your senators, your representatives, your state governor, your state representatives, and your mayor. I've included links below on how to get in touch with your officials, templates on what to discuss, and websites that track upcoming legislation. I will also post screenshots of making contact with my own public officials. Feel free to use them or make changes to them. People who are pro-gun are usually more active in politics, and we need to change that stigma. It's easy for someone to shout down any gun reform in the echo chambers of the internet, but respectfully contacting your elected officials and explaining why gun reform is essential is a key to making our society more safe. You don't need a complex argument, you just need to say, I think we should have less guns. You're telling me you can't find the time to find your elected officials on Twitter and roast them for not supporting gun reform? But please, roast them respectfully. Finally, we get to the everyday social aspect of reforming gun violence. When someone wants to engage you in a polite discussion about guns, I wholeheartedly invite you to share your ideas and opinions. Collaboration is the bedrock of the United States of America. And if someone wants to shout you down, give inadequate solutions like arming teachers, or just engage you with bullying, it's fine to say, I think we just need less guns, and walk away from the conversation. There is no point in trying to debate someone who has already made up their mind. I encourage you to stay calm, cool-headed, and collected. Before we can implement solutions, we have to talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, the NRA. The NRA is a gun rights advocacy group that has made it nearly impossible for any form of gun legislation to exist in the United States. They are lobbyists who buy elected officials to enrich themselves and make it harder for the average American's voice to be heard. They are a major hurdle when considering stemming gun violence. I could do an entire video on the NRA and lobbying, so maybe we can just tackle that obstacle another time. A quick rundown of their activities include publishing pro-gun agitprop, passing legislation making it impossible to use federal funds for health and safety research on guns, misusing charitable funds and tax-exempt status, filing for bankruptcy in bad faith, and using PACs and super PACs to buy our elections. Also, on an unrelated note, when I went to their website and I tried to click on the sources in their articles, nothing happened. I would love to check out their sources, but at the moment I can't. I understand they're a gun lobby and that they don't take the idea of gun violence personally, but just letting a gun lobby control our legislation is insanely corrupt. By bringing chaos, people will feel hopeless and less likely to do anything about the problem. It is a wholly unique experience to live in America and fear that at any moment, for no reason, someone can just take out a gun and just start shooting people. This fear is meant to make us feel weak and submit to the tide of influence. If someone is found unfit to possess a firearm, I don't want to harm them. I don't want to infringe on their way of life. Being denied a weapon is not the end of existence. I'm not trying to sound mean-spirited, but it's okay to be told no once in a while. I think we need to have a conversation about what kind of a country we want to live in. Do we want to live in a very gun-regulated society where we have as few as 100 gun-related fatalities a year? Do we want to live in our current situation where we have 44,861 gun deaths a year? Or do we want to do something in between? What number is acceptable? 10,000? 60,000? 1 or maybe 0? Thanks for listening.